Praise be Jesus and Mary. Now and forever. Today we honor a saint who bore 100-fold. St. Clare died on not St. Clare, but Blessed Mattia. But she was born the same year that St. Clare died. St. Clare died on August 11th, 1253, and on March 1st, our Blessed had been born at Matelica in the Marches of Ancona. This is a region of northern Italy where the Holy House of Loreto would arrive a little over 40 years later. It would become known for Franciscan sanctity. Many of the friars in the Fioretti, or Little Flowers of St. Francis, are from this region. Mattia's mother was named Sibylla, and her father was Mattia Nazarei, a nobleman. He apparently died when she was a child, leaving only her mother to take care of her. In Matelica there was a monastery of Poor Clares, founded before Mattia was born in 1230, during the life of St. Clare, obviously. It was named for St. Mary Magdalene. She often went to its church and wanted to enter the monastery, but her mother frowned on the idea. In 1270, when she was 17 years old, abandoning everything, she slipped out of the house like St. Clare had done and went to the monastery of St. Mary Magdalene. There she asked to be admitted for love of God, but the abbess told her to go back home until she had permission. Unwilling to do so, she went to the oratory and cut her own hair as a sign of consecration. The legend says that she found also some gray clothing that she put on as a sort of habit. She prayed in the oratory before the crucifix. An ancient manuscript says that this was her prayer: "O Jesus, my most sweet Lord, help me with your lights in this trial which delays my entrance into your sanctuary. I am, O Lord, your creature, and you are my creator. You made me in your image and likeness, and so I pray to you to not abandon me. You know that for love of you I renounce the riches and joys of the world, solely to serve you with all my heart. In you, O Lord, I have placed all my hope." Some combination of her prayer and her determination convinced the abbess to admit her. Despite her noble birth, she gladly did the humblest tasks in the monastery. On August 10, 1271, she professed vows and gave everything she possessed to the monastery. We know the exact date because the notario deed has been found, along with about 100 others from the period of her lifetime. She consumed only bread and water, except on Sundays when she also ate vegetables. Her legal guardian intervened, however, to force her to leave the monastery, and she had to comply, but she appealed to the Pope's judicial vicar and was readmitted. Blessed Mattia was a humble and modest nun, gentle in her speech. One sign of her virtue was the fact that she was made abbess less than 2 years after her profession. A document of April 21st, 1273 speaks of her as abbess and says that there were at that point 31 nuns in the monastery. The various documents from the period of her lifetime name over 50 nuns who lived in the community during her lifetime. One thing that increased their number was that the nuns of the little monastery of St. Agatha abandoned their monastery to enter Blessed Mattia's. They said that theirs was too small and not a decent place to live. So they wanted to close it and profess obedience to the Blessed, transferring all their goods to the monastery they were entering. There was a controversy and a long legal battle, but in the end the nuns of St. Agatha were able to enter the monastery of St. Mary Magdalene. Another controversy erupted due to one of the vocations she had accepted. On April 19th, also in 1273, Blessed Mattia received the profession of a young lady named Angelica. 11 months later, her guardian sued the abbess, alleging that she had forced the girl to stay in the abbey and demanding that Angelica be returned to her home. Blessed Mattia and the other nuns insisted that the judicial victor actually talked to Angelica, and when he did, it became clear immediately that no one had forced her to do anything. Due to the growing number of vocations, the church and monastery were too small, but since the monastery excelled in poverty, they had no money to pay for the construction. Trusting in God's providence, Blessed Mattia set about building a larger and more fitting church. When that was finished, she enlarged the monastery, first God and then the nuns. with the aid of Providence, everything was finished quickly, and they could make good use of the church to adore the Blessed Sacrament. One day a boy in Matelica was running into his house at great speed when he hit the door frame so hard that he was knocked unconscious. For 3 weeks he couldn't speak, and only with difficulty could he swallow water. No treatment seemed to be able to help him, and he was wasting away because he couldn't eat. Despairing of human help, his brother brought him to the monastery and begged the abbess to heal her son. Blessed Mattia directed a fervent prayer to God, and when she had finished, the boy shook himself and got up completely healed. She also obtained the conversion of many sinners to whom she spoke of God's mercy. When the time came for her to pass from this world to the Father, she knew it in advance. She called her nuns together and said, "Tonight admittance is the last hour and the end of my life. It is time to go to the Father." She gave them a final exhortation to observe above all else chastity, obedience, and poverty. And she also stressed the importance of holy charity. She died on October 28th, although the year is uncertain. The traditional year is 1319, which would mean that she was abbess for 46 years. Everyone wanted to see and touch the body of the holy nun, and many sick people were healed. A few weeks later, she was reburied in the church, in a sepulchre raised to the right of the altar. Her body was found at that point still incorrupt and flexible, and gave off a sweet perfume. In 1536, her body was again moved to a new sepulchre. It was still incorrupt, and on this occasion the body emitted for the first time a sort of bloody sweat or humor. This has been a means by which miracles have been worked. St. Pio, I think, said that miracles cost blood, so perhaps this is the blood with which Saint or Blessed Mattia obtains these miracles. In the mid-1700s, her cause finally got going in a more definitive way. It had been suspended earlier, and so her sepulchre was opened for the canonical recognition. The body has to be identified and examined. And it was still mostly incorrupt then too, over 400 years after her death, although it was somewhat dried out, and her limbs were flexible. 2 years later, they reopened her coffin to see if there was still this mysterious bloody humor, and indeed there was. And again, a few months later, in the presence of the bishop, they did this. They found that if they would put a cloth on her, within 2 minutes it would have these marks of blood in it. And despite the fact that there wasn't blood on the surface of her body. So So the rate at which this humor has been produced varies over the centuries. It's not constantly produced. In 1972, they were finally able to do a hematological analysis, and they found that the stains on the cloth that they analyzed were certainly blood, albeit somewhat old blood. She was beatified on July 27th, 1765, which is probably where they got the date for today's memorial. Curiously, George III of England, although he wasn't Catholic, the king of the American Revolution, was among those who pushed for the beatification. I don't know why. Perhaps he was hoping for or had received a healing. He had a lot of problems with his physical and mental health during his life. On October 6, 1811, the Napoleonic troops came, and they carried off Blessed Mattia's body. Must be rid of this fanaticism, thinking that people actually do miracles. But eventually it was returned on the following January 1st. Apart from that, her body has always been there, and miracles have been reported in every century. Men condemned to death freed from prison, healings from paralysis, epilepsy, lung infections, brain tumors, meningitis, and many other things. In 1855, she stopped a cholera epidemic in Matelica. On March 19, 1991, St. John Paul II went to visit her. He was making a pastoral visit there, and he took the opportunity to go visit the Blessed. 2 days later, the secretary of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, who had accompanied the Pope, took someone to the train station, and when he came back to his car, he found that the window had been smashed and his briefcase stolen. He was worried because the briefcase contained confidential documents. So, somewhat worried, he prayed to Blessed Mattia, almost complaining about what had happened. Here, we've gone to honor you, and look what happened to me. And he asked her to get the briefcase back for him. The next morning at 6:30, he got a call from the driver of a magistrate who had found his briefcase on an embankment next to the beltway. It was just 8 hours after his prayer. And when the driver brought him the briefcase, he explained that an interior voice had told him, or ordered him, go get it, and so he did. And despite the heavy rain that night, the briefcase was still in good condition, still locked, and nothing was missing. So, if there's one thing that's really a mystery to me, it's why she hasn't been canonized, because she keeps doing miracles. Sometimes someone does miracles, but they have trouble getting the attention of the congregation for saints. But there's no better way to get the attention of the congregation than to do a miracle for the secretary. Hoping that she will be beatified, or be rather canonized soon, we pray that Blessed Mattia will help us and too in all the needs of our life. Praised be Jesus and Mary.
Would like to grow in love and knowledge of the Immaculate Virgin Mary? Consider a subscription to the Missio Immacolate magazine. The Missio is a bi-monthly magazine published by the Franciscans of the Immaculate for over 15 years. Every issue of the Missio features articles about Our Lady's privileges and her mission in the Church and world for the sanctification and conversion of souls. The Missio takes to heart the ancient saying of the Church, De Maria nunquam satis, of Mary you can never say enough. You can subscribe online at missiomagazine.com, that's MISSIO, magazine.com, or go to the homepage of airmaria.com. Back issues of the Missio are also available upon request. The Missio is a practical way to behold your mother and take her into your home. Ave Maria.